This video discussion is about integrating evidence and documenting sources. When it comes to the body paragraphs of your causal analysis essay, each body paragraph should include the following. You need a topic sentence that establishes the topic of the paragraph. You need evidence from your sources. You need an analysis of the cause or effect and an explanation of the connection between the evidence and the cause or effect you're focusing on in the paragraph. When it comes to integrating evidence from your sources, it can be a little bit tricky to do this smoothly. Evidence from sources, paraphrased information, or direct quotes must be integrated smoothly. What that means is that you should avoid dropped or floating quotes, meaning quotes that you just put in the paragraph without any setup or reference to where that information came from. You have two options when you're integrating direct quotes. You can directly set them up by using one of those templates that's outlined in number 4 on the handout called Developing the Causal Analysis Essay, or you can weave a part or parts of a quote in with your own sentence. Let's take a look at some examples. If you directly set up a quote, you need to establish the title of the source and the name of the author. If appropriate, you can include information about the author's credentials, and you need to use an appropriate verb. You can refer to the templates on the second page of the Developing the Causal Analysis Essay handout. Here's an example from the book The Omnivore's Dilemma. Michael Pollan, author of the book The Omnivore's Dilemma, emphasizes the prevalence of corn in an American diet and says, read the ingredients on the label of any processed food and, provided you know the chemical names it travels under, corn is what you will find. If you notice, we have the name of the author here, highlighted in purple. We have the title of the source, which is the title of the book, and then we have an appropriate verb for what the author is doing, followed by the direct quote. Now, if we weave or blend in quotes, you're going to take a selection of the text and weave it in with your own words. Let's take a look at this example. The next time you are in the grocery store, look at, quote, the ingredients on the label of any processed food, and provided you know the chemical names it travels under, corn is what you will find. We have the same quote that we were just looking at in the last slide, but instead of directly setting it up with the source title and the author name, we blended it in with our own sentence. And finally, you can paraphrase information. When you paraphrase information, you take the information from the source and you put it in your own words. Let's take a look at an example. If you look at the ingredients label on any processed food package, you will find that corn, which can appear under different chemical names, is one of the ingredients listed. We have the same information that we had in the other two slides. The only difference is that instead of using a direct quote, we've paraphrased the information or put it into our own words. Now notice how none of these had an in-text citation listed at the end, which you should have if you're documenting your sources correctly. So now let's talk about documentation. There are two different documentation styles that we're focusing on in this course. There's MLA, which stands for Modern Language Association, and there's also APA, which is American Psychological Association. In that same handout that I referenced before, the Developing the Causal Analysis Essay handout, the final page of the handout includes a page that says, which documentation style should I use for this essay? Look at this page to determine which documentation style works for you. If you're writing about a topic that's related to English literature, religion, theater or film, art history, philosophy, linguistics, music, or history, then MLA will be the most appropriate documentation style for this paper. If you're working with a topic related to psychology, education, sociology, business, journalism, politics, medicine, law and legal studies, or social work, then APA will be the most appropriate documentation style to use for this paper. There is a difference between the two. MLA places emphasis on authorship, while APA places emphasis on the date a text was written or created. With MLA, you will include a works cited page as the last page of your document. If you're using APA, then you will include a reference page as the very last page of your document. Now let's take a look at how these two documentation styles differ. There's an entire section on MLA documentation style and an entire section on APA documentation style and how to write anything, as well as your book or writer's reference. So use the page numbers outlined on the handout that I was referencing before to see which page numbers you should look at for these different documentation styles. Now, if we were going to cite a print book using MLA format, this is what the works cited entry would look like. You start with the author's last name, then the first name, the title of the book, the place of publication, the publisher, the date that it was published, and then the word print to indicate that it is a print book. For the same book, if you're using APA documentation style, you'll notice that it starts with the author's last name followed by the author's first initial. And right after that is the date that it was published, so the emphasis is placed on the date of publication. Following the date is the title of the book, The Omnivore's Dilemma, then the city and state where it was published, and then the publishing group. So you can see these citation styles are very similar in the way that you document sources, but the emphasis is different. Now let's take a look at in-text citations. We still have the works cited entry and then the reference entry, but the in-text citations are going to differ. So here we have Michael Pollan, author of the book The Omnivore's Dilemma, emphasizes the prevalence of corn in an American diet and says, and then we have a quote. Since we've already mentioned the author's name over here in setting up the quote, then when we put in our in-text citation, we only need to include the page number where that quote was from in the book. And that would be the MLA in-text citation. With APA, notice how here we have the author's name followed by the date. The date immediately follows the author's last name before you even get to the quote. And then in the in-text citation, we have P, period, and then the page number. So again, very similar in terms of documentation style, but there are subtle differences with the emphasis being placed on the date when it comes to APA. Make sure that you reference both how to write anything as well as a writer's reference to make sure that you're documenting your sources correctly. Remember, you'll be working with print books, ebooks, which are electronic books, or articles from the databases that you can find through the Holt Library resources. If you want to practice writing, here's what you would do. Develop a topic sentence for a body paragraph in your essay. Identify and highlight one or two quotes you can use in the body paragraph to support the analysis of the cause and/or effect. Select a template or templates from the Developing the Causal Analysis essay handout and then integrate those quotes or that quote smoothly. And then develop the rest of the body paragraph. Follow up on the quote or quotes and illustrate how the quote is connected to the cause or effect you are analyzing in that paragraph. You do want to make sure there's a balance between the evidence from research and then your commentary or analysis on the cause or effect that you're focusing on. Use these tips and make sure that you reference your textbooks in order to integrate evidence smoothly and to document your resources properly for the causal analysis essay.